Hey everyone, welcome to Hunters Connect. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to e-scout for black bears out west. So let's head inside to the computer and we'll get started. All right, so there are a lot of ways to go about finding good spring black bear hunting areas, and a lot of guys do it differently, but this is just one strategy that I like to use that's worked really well for me. There's a couple tools that we're going to use to locate these spots. First, we're going to be using Google Earth, and we're also going to be using OnX. And so Google Earth, primarily I just use it for the 3D feature. And you need to make sure that you're using the downloaded version. It's called Google Earth Pro, because there's one feature in there that's really important that you don't get in the browser Google Earth. And so we'll use that 3D feature to find slopes that really look intriguing and to find a good glassing spot if there is one that we can sit at to watch those slopes. So then we'll use OnX to find access into that spot. So keeping this process pretty simple, I've narrowed it down to 4 different steps that I use. And so first, we just need to find the general area that we're hunting, the state that we're hunting, and a general area within that state. So when we're trying to figure out and narrow down to a general area of a state that we want to hunt, there's a couple things we want to keep in mind. First off, generally speaking, the bears are going to be living in the more mountainous terrains. Right, you're more likely to see them up in the mountains than you are down on the prairie. And within mountainous terrain, I'm just making sure there's a good amount of timber that a bear can find cover in. All right, so for Montana, we're generally going to be focused on the western part of the state. That holds a larger population of black bears. There's a lot more timber. It's just better black bear habitat. So on Google Earth, you can just tell which areas are a lot more timbered. They'll look a lot more green, like dark green colored, compared to like eastern and central Montana. You can tell it's just a lot more barren, open country, not a place I'm gonna go to start looking for bears. All right, so I'm actually gonna use an area in the Bob Marshall Wilderness called the Sun River Game Preserve because it's actually closed to hunting. So you can't actually go there and use these spots. That's kind of why I picked it, but these same principles will apply, in a different state that you're hunting, if you're hunting Idaho or a different part of Montana. All right, so step 2, I'm going to identify some slopes that have some green looking habitat. So when we're trying to identify more specific slopes that we might be interested in, there's a couple things that we're looking for. So first, I'm looking generally at south or east facing slopes, simply because throughout the day they've received more sun, meaning earlier in the season the snow is going to melt and grass and different things that bears feed on are going to start greening up earlier than like a north facing side. So in the spring, generally bears are going to be feeding mostly on types of grasses, and they can be feeding on things like onion grass, and I've also seen them feed on things like glacier lilies or arrowleaf balsam root. So these are the kind of things that we're looking for. And obviously on Google Earth, you can't tell what species of grass or plants are growing in an area. But what you can do is look at areas that are really starting to green up, even just on the satellite imagery. So on Google Earth, places I like to start looking at are avalanche chutes, rocky ledges, like little cliff faces almost. Clear cuts can also be good, places that have been logged. Anywhere that receives some sun and can green up, but also is within some big pockets of timber and some water nearby as well. Some of this stuff maybe could be good. There's a decent amount of timber. There's a lot here, but as you can see, there's some avalanche chutes coming down here. Okay, this could potentially be a good area. Let's keep looking though. Okay, same here. This actually looks pretty good, I think, in my opinion. You have a lot of timber here. Obviously this north side is just littered with timber. But you have some slopes, that are these avalanche chutes here. So bear could be living in this timber, come out and feed. There's going to be water going through here. For most of the spring season, there's going to be water coming down through this stuff. All right, so once I found some promising slopes, I'm gonna flip the direction and try to identify a good glassing knob. Here's a scree field that would be good, but I think it's too far up the drainage in the wrong direction. But let's take this icon. This is why this is the feature that I mentioned that you need Google Earth Pro for. So then we'll flip back, face north. Okay, so this isn't great because we're not able to see, this is the stuff we were wanting to look over. So I think we're too far to the west. So let's see if there were any other ones. Maybe you could get in here, but it looks like there's some sparse timber. It might not be the best. And then we're getting so high up, that's going to be a heck of a hike up. I mean, this is probably going to be covered in snow. This is quite the elevation gain. So I'm not sure about this spot, but let's just see. Hypothetically, I mean, this looks like a good spot, I think. But the glassing, there's not really a great glassing knob because you can see a lot of this looks like it's going to be trees and stuff when you actually get there. So there's not an ideal spot to glass from. So let's find another spot that might be better. Okay, so let's look at this. Some of this stuff intrigues me. Maybe even some of these slopes. But you see these avalanche chutes are south facing. This actually looks really good, I think. There's a ton of cover. Okay, so a bear is gonna be able to have a lot of cover throughout the day, but still just walk out and feed on some of these. So we have a good looking avalanche chute here, one here, and there's, in the spring there's gonna be snow all up here. So there's gonna be water right here. So theoretically, a bear could live, right here in this stuff, go out and feed, get water, and go back without having to move more than a couple hundred yards, okay? So that could be a good spot. This stuff looks pretty good too. We're getting into some more cliffy areas. Cliffs can be good, like not straight cliffs, but ledges, kind of rocky areas, because a lot of times the snow will actually fall off and it'll melt faster, so stuff will start greening up. So early in the season, kind of cliffy areas with like bands like this can be good. Hard to tell until you really get there. We're doing a lot of guesswork. Sometimes you'll show up and the slope will just be barren and rock. I've done that many times. So you never really know until you actually get there. But let's say, okay, this stuff looks intriguing. This stuff looks really good, and here looks pretty decent. So let's just go kind of in the middle of all of it and flip around and see if there's any good glassing knobs. Okay, so as you can see, there's a ton of rock and little places you could potentially sit and glass from on this little cliff overhang. See if, hypothetically, if we can get up there. Okay, so this looks really good. Okay, so we have this area that we can potentially see, as long as the trees aren't obstructing our view. And then we have here, we've got some of this stuff, like this could be good, like these little pockets here. And then we have those avalanche chutes over here, okay, and some of these cliffs. So this looks really good. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna pin this. I say PGS, possible glassing spot. So that's gonna be a potential area. And then since it's always different once you get there, it's good to mark a couple. And a lot of times when you're hiking this really thick stuff, you can't see up here, so we need to make sure we have spots marked. All right, so let's pick like some of these spots maybe you could. Let's try in this little opening here. Okay, this looks like a good spot too. Okay, so now we have a second area that really looks over these chutes that look really good, and some of this stuff. Okay, this avalanche chute. So this looks like a pretty good spot. I'm gonna mark this. I'll say PGS 2. All right, so now that I've found some good looking slopes, I've identified some good glassing knobs, now I'm gonna go to OnX and I'm gonna just make sure it's a reasonable hike to get to, see if there's a trail, see if there's a trailhead nearby, and if so, if it's a reasonable hike, this might be a place that I go check out. All right, so you can just copy and paste these. into OnX. I think there's a better way to do this, but I don't know how. But I just copy and paste them. And okay, and then I'll hit the magnifying glass. And that'll mark, okay, there's our first spot. So let's add a waypoint there. So we'll go to glassing area. All right, so let's copy over our second glassing area. Maybe we'll move it up a little higher there. We'll change that to glassing area. So as I mentioned, this is in the Bob Marshall, so it's like 20 miles back. For example's sake, let's pretend it's a more reasonable area. Let's just pretend this is like the trailhead, okay? Let's just say we can park here. You can tell this whole thing is 11.9 miles, but let's just do a quick estimate of how far it is to the glassing areas. Okay, so the first one, as you can see, it is over 6 miles, and then you have to hike straight up 5,800, so you're gonna need to climb up to about 6,300, so you're gonna gain 500 feet in elevation, which honestly isn't horrible. All right, so let's just say you're not willing to make this hike. You're looking for an area that's maybe 3 or 4 miles in, more reasonable to get to, especially for a day hunt or something like that. Well, you're just gonna repeat this process, and then you're just gonna do it until you find an area that works for you. That's an easier hike to get to, but still looks good and is gonna work better for your situation. All right, so that's how I go about e-scouting for black bears. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure to check out our other videos on Hunters Connect.